You're listening to Impress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Yeah, yeah. Impress. Join us next time on the next episode of Impress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.impressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.
Hello, everybody. I would like to introduce you to my special guest, Dawn Wells, and here's a little bit about her. Dawn is a certified and licensed medical fitness practitioner specializing in clinical fitness and blood type nutrition. She began to spread the message of feeling great in one's own body to her own students. Dawn holds several certifications in wellness coaching, personal training, group fitness, nutrition, sports nutrition training, stress eating, and self-coaching. Today, Dawn remains committed to both physical and mental health through her organizations, Angel Eyes Fitness and DWF Fitness. Angel Eyes Fitness and Nutrition is a nonprofit that offers healthy exercise and eating programs for the blind and visually impaired. DWF Wellness empowers lifelong healthfulness in clients with the revolutionary wellness systems. These innovative systems help clients receive, learn, and permanently adopt the science of nutrition, exercise, and weight management. To learn more about Dawn, please visit angeleyesfitnessandnutrition.org. Welcome, Dawn. Welcome.
Hi, how are you, Maggie?
Fantastic. And how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Wonderful. Dawn, help me as I was reading your introduction here. Tell our listeners a little bit more about the difference between visually impaired and being blind. What is the difference? Let's start with the very basics there.
Well, first, let me make one quick correction. When you were reading my bio, you mentioned it was Angel Eyes Fitness. It's Angel Eyes Fitness and Nutrition and DWF Wellness, just to make sure in case somebody tries to find us, they can get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's a common mistake. They're very long names. All right. So the difference is someone that is totally blind is blind, where they have no vision whatsoever, meaning complete in total darkness. Someone that is visually impaired has some remnants of sight, even if it's just shading. That person would then be considered visually impaired, or what's now referred to as low vision.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to tell this beautiful story to our listeners. About 8 years ago, I was minding my own business, stopped over at a gas station, and I'll always associate this story with QT. I was at a QT filling up my truck as I was getting ready to go about my way, and I received a call from Dawn. And she started to tell me about this class that she taught and how the students were visually impaired and how she had to direct them. You would have thought this woman won the lottery, and her passion came through that phone. And I was so patient and tried to take in. I was drinking in every single word, hanging on the edge of as I was holding the nozzle trying to fill up my truck here. But I was just so blown away. Take our listeners through the journey of 8 years ago to where Angel Eyes is today and how your journey progressed, please.
Sure. So I and Angel Eyes have progressed considerably since that time. It was, like you said, at the time, I was a Zumba instructor and was asked to teach a class. It was by mistake to the blind and visually impaired. And that's a long story, but to cut to the chase, I was advised to teach the class on what we call the Braille cell, which is how the blind are learn to read Braille. It's set up like a domino. So it's goes from the top down, 6, 5, 4, and then on the other side, 3, 2, 1, like a domino, right? Like the dots on a domino.
Okay.
And so he said, pretend like you're standing on the two, the two dots in the middle. So it'd be four, right? Four. I mean, excuse me, 5 and 3. And so I mean 5 and 2. So I was like, okay, and you could just execute like that. So I got all prepared, got ready to go teach this class, and that was how I was gonna do it. And bam, it was a disaster. Because the blind, not all of the blind and visually impaired community read Braille. Not everybody learns that way because there's so much technology now. A lot of the blind and visually impaired community does not have to learn Braille so right away, right? And so it didn't work. They could not follow. And even the following class, they they did read. Some of them are a little bit older, so they did read Braille, but some of them, some didn't. And they too couldn't follow what I was trying to do. So I marched them to death, had great music, and we just laughed and had a really good time. And anyway, from there, I was like, thank God this is over. I'm getting the heck up out of here before they start throwing eggs. So we left. My granddaughter were with me that day. And I got a call a couple weeks later saying, hey, I heard you're Dawn Wells, right? Dawn, don't you teach? We were told you were a instructor, fitness instructor for the blind. And it was complete silence on the phone because I was like, are you sure? This is Dawn Wells. Are you sure you mean me? And they were so sure. Yes, you taught a class at the National Federation for the Blind annual convention, state convention, and they said you were fabulous, and we want you to come and do a 6-week series for the blind and visually impaired. And I was like, in my mind, I said, heck no. In my heart, I said yes. And of course, my heart and my mouth followed my heart. And I was like, you are stupid. You don't know. So anyway, it evolved. And at that time, it was an hour and a half class because I had to learn to speak and give instruction for the blind and visually impaired. Right. And so I said, I'll do it, but I need this kind of time. Fast forward, we were doing one class in one location, in downtown Atlanta. And at that time, I realized there was a need for this, for this permanently. And so I asked if I could then volunteer after that 6 weeks and do it once a month. I could commit to that, teaching classes once a month. And they were so excited, and we did. From there, everything has changed. Fast forward to 8 years later. Well, let me go back just a little bit, but then come back forward. So fast forward to about 5 years later, I came to realize that I'm only one person, and there's a world of blind community. That blind make up 8% of the population in the United States. And so I said, all right, I need to, how can I teach this in more than one place, right? And so what I did was Zoom at that time in 2018 was starting to be up and coming. And I said, you know what? I'm also a Lions with the Lions Club International. I had volunteers that then started coming on site. I developed that relationship. And at this time, they were coming on site to help me out with classes. I was like, well, what if I could get the Lions Club's volunteers to go to other locations, set up technology, and we could Zoom it. So we did get another location, which then was in Madison, Georgia. And it worked. Right? It worked, Maggie, which was amazing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this everywhere. Right? And so I was excited about that. And so I said, this is going to be our footprint now. We'll do on-site and have satellite locations like that, where I'm not there, but the class will be set up with technology and guides there to help make sure the environment is safe and they're executing well, from volunteers, period, not just Lions volunteers. Pandemic hit, pump the brakes, everything.
Right.
Pump the brakes, everything. But I had already started using Zoom. Come to find out that the Zoom was actually utilized within the blind community regularly. So they were comfortable with Zoom. it was accessible, so they could utilize that tool. So I said, well, you know what? We're going to go 100% virtual. And we did. And we hooked up with the American Council of the Blind,
Okay.
and they are national. We were just working with the National Federation for the Blind in Georgia at the time. Got exposed through one of our board members now. Her name is Cecily Nipper. She's the president for the Georgia chapter. And I'm cutting to the chase, but this is all relevant and really important in the overall story.
Okay.
So from there, the American Council started to advertise Angel Eyes class. They invited us to do their annual convention via Zoom.
Okay.
Did it, and for the nation. And from there, we started getting national participation
Wow.
via Zoom. And so then it became, during the pandemic, we had well over 30 plus states that were, including Hawaii at that time, that had started joining our Zoom classes that we teach. We teach at the time only twice a week, right? I started doing, and when I first started, I was only doing once a month. Then I started doing twice a month, then weekly, because it was needed, right?
Right.
It's something that's continual. And so from there, it went well. And so fast forward, pandemic, I said, all right, we've got this down to a science. Let's go international. And so St. Thomas USVI, the USVI period is near and dear to my heart. And so I reached out to a contact there, the Center for Independent Living. And then I said, I wonder where else we could do this, right? And I'm sorry, my lights are acting crazy over here. And then I reached out to, there's something called the Blind Union, Maggie. And the Blind Union is very much like the United Nations for the blind and visually impaired. Every single country on the face of the planet is represented through the Blind Union, and all of the world leaders come together and discuss issues within the blind and visually impaired community through this international outlet. So I sat down and contacted every single leader on earth and introduced them to Angel Eyes via email. And the first response we received was from Africa, the president for the continent. That was the representation for the continent of Africa. From there, he invited us to come and speak to the board, which included all of the 5 region leaders there. And we spoke to them. And so now we're developing that relationship, so that now we are teaching in the U.S. Virgin Islands as well as in Africa.
Fantastic.
And since the pandemic has lifted, we also have reopened our satellite locations. We had one before, we had 2, we lost one during the pandemic. Now we have 3, and 3 locations in Covington, Georgia, East Point, Georgia, and in Decatur, Georgia. And we are establishing ties with Cobb County here in Georgia. So we will have those 4 sites up and going before the year end. So right now, 3 of the 4 are going. And that is, I know it took me a while to get there, but it was all important for you guys to understand the journey that we've gone through and the development. It's been absolutely amazing. We are an official 501c3, and we are governed by a board of directors. And so, yeah, that's Angel Eyes.
That is Angel Eyes. But Dawn, it's not so much the destination where you are, that journey, because I'm sure some of our listeners probably have a passion to do something, but this is so encouraging to hear, because again, I go back to 8 years ago when you fumbled through that first class and had no idea that today you'd be sitting with an organization that is international with different branches, divisions, and a board that you have to answer to.
Instructors,
You had no clue. And
Right.
whether you probably start off, oh, I'm not going to make any money off of this. But today, the impact that you're making on people's lives, I mean, it was just day by day, and you kept going and you kept pushing. But in the midst of all of this, Don, it was your passion because this would have gone nowhere. How did you find yourself? I mean, what was that passion that just got you so excited? Because you obviously have 2020 vision, and nobody in my family in your family that I'm aware of has issues with vision. Why this area, other than just being called to some this class, that it just was like, oh my God.
There it is a need.
Mm,
And you have to be open. That's the thing. My passion is wellness, period. Fitness and nutrition. That's
mm,
my passion, which is why I'm a healthcare provider in fitness,
mm,
something that's very new and also very trendy, right?
right.
And so that is my passion as a whole. But if you've ever taught in the blind and visually impaired community, the need is there. So why not answer it if you're able? It's a gift that God gave me. And I say that, Maggie, because that's exactly what it is. I've been able to train four other instructors to teach. So I'm not the only one anymore, but it's a gift, right? It is a gift. And if it was something that I could actually teach somebody else, why not? Why not? No, it is not my primary source of income at all. I still volunteer my time when I teach 4 days a week, which 4 days a week we now offer classes. But it was a need, and so you answer that calling. If it's a gift that you have, and that's the area in which you're called, you have to be open to exploring that, and God will bless it. And maybe that's not appropriate for your show, but it's a very much appropriate for my journey and to share. Yes.
Oh my goodness. So going back to you leaving corporate America because you were a professional tech recruiter. And
Hmm.
then now, and you hit on something because the fact that you're saying it was your gift, and people struggle with that. You could be 20, 30, 40, and be like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? What am I trying to? There's a lot of online quizzes that people can take, but for you, this is something that your path in life just put you in this situation, and you literally just flourished from it. And your passion and love of people is the one thing that I've got to say has truly propelled you to this, because there is a special calling for you to be able to niche down to this level and just truly a whole nother world open for you. But my question for you is, as an entrepreneur, as a Black woman in business, as a Black woman, because it still took the drive, it still took you to learn from your mistakes. Tell me some of the failures that you had, and you had to redirect yourself in order to move on or overcome a challenge.
There's failures almost every time you teach. And why I say that, because it's like speaking another language, right? You learn certain things a certain way, and then they don't work in every element, in every environment. So you've got to adapt and overcome. I'm a Marine. Okay, that's my background, which was not on my bio, but I was a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And our motto is adapt and overcome. And it is just so there's been daily teaching. Sometimes I instruct and it doesn't make sense. I know that's minute, but it isn't when you're talking to an audience that can't see what you're doing. And it's your job to make sure that they not only have fun, but that they also get that it's also impacting, right? And that they actually receive benefits from the wellness. We're not just shaking body parts. And no, we don't sit down. We offer 12 different programs within Angel. I think it's actually 13 or 14, something like that. Different fitness programs, from dance fitness to boxing to line dance to Tai Chi, all different programs within Angel Eyes. And so learning how to be able to effectively teach that is really critical for your audience. Effectively teaching is really critical. Some of my other failures were, even when we first started, I had a great board, really great board, right? But they weren't invested in what I was doing. And because of that, I did not get the support that I needed from them. And I'm not faulting the board, because they were the movers and the shakers. But just because someone is a mover and shaker does not mean that they are right for your nonprofit. Also, I went and got additional education so I could learn how to be a CEO in a nonprofit. And so I went and did a 6-week course with the Center for Nonprofit to learn how to be able to effectively run a nonprofit organization. And then also that might not sound like a failure, but it was because we weren't getting anywhere. We weren't getting the traction. And so, specifically in a nonprofit, when you are governed by a board, you need a board that's going to work and be invested in your vision in some
Right.
capacity. And
Right.
each person has to bring a specific element to that. One of our board members is a state councilwoman. She is able to help us move around, and she actually was able to get a bill approved for the blind community in Georgia as a whole. One of our board members is a VP in Goodwill.
Mm.
Goodwill is a nonprofit, right? And her being a VP at that level, she could help us to get aligned so that Angel Eyes could establish itself in that way. And so but I didn't learn that until I failed at that in that area where we weren't getting the growth that we needed, right? And understanding we needed strategic planning and specific budgets and a grant writer and all these kinds of things. And so, I mean, I'm a wellness. That's what I do, right? My education is in IT, for heaven's sakes. What do I know about that, right? And then
Well,
and then wellness. I didn't know anything about being a CEO.
Well, let's take it back a little bit because on the practical day to day with the classes, the first thing that I heard is obviously communication. Because if somebody cannot visually see that communication, the instruction that you give has to be completely clear. So
Correct.
on the flip side, I let's explore this a little bit more. I love the idea that because you didn't have the skill set, you took time out to educate yourself and took a 6 weeks course. So for someone perhaps may not have the experience, has the passion, what other courses or education would you recommend in order to serve better in those areas?
So with the courses that I took, right?
Mhm.
That was not for me to be able to better instruct within the blind community. It was for me to be able to understand how to be a CEO in a
Yes,
nonprofit. So
right.
that was one thing. The other thing is this: if it is your passion, you should want to absorb all of the information that you can. I was trailblazing by being one of 6 medical fitness practitioners in this country. We are exactly where nurses practitioners were in the beginning when they started 20 years ago. It was like, what the heck is that? Right. And they didn't know. Now nurse practitioners are next in line to doctors. So I went and I saw that being able to be a visionary. So it's really understanding what you're trying to accomplish with wellness as a whole, and especially within the blind community, because there a lot of the community are not as active as some of us that are sighted. I took it upon myself to get what there's no courses in how to teach the blind, not fitness. There's no courses in that, right? I learned that by doing it and listening and paying attention. And then for those that did have their cameras on, looking at my instruction and seeing how it was it effective? What body part am I focusing on? Every class is dissected down into an area of the body, and so learning how to effectively teach that is not something that can be taught. It's a gift when I first got it. But now I am teaching it. I've developed a tool, not a tool, but a system in order to be able to instruct others, which is why we now have 4 additional instructors. And we will be adding to that as we grow. But yes, education and understanding the body first, right? And making sure I know what's the correct way for someone to execute, let's say, a shoulder press or whatever, a push up or whatever we're doing. Understanding first how it's supposed to be done correctly, and then thinking through how it would look and feel to someone, and being able to effectively explain how it should be executed out. Does that make sense or
It
answer your question?
does. No, you did a great job responding to that. So, Don, if I were listening and I'm like, wow, this lady has really done a lot. Not only did you do Angel Eyes Fitness and Nutrition, you turned around and went and duplicated, not duplicated, that's not the right word, but you
Right.
turned around and had another baby, which is DWF, Don Wells Fitness. Well, and talk to us about that, because that was another process where after a successful venture with Angel Eyes, you went ahead and had this other passion. So let's talk about the mindset that you were in at that point, what steps you took to launch DWF Wellness.
I I understood that my purpose on this planet was not to recruit in
Mhm,
IT. It was something I enjoyed doing and I still enjoy doing, it was something I always would love to do.
mhm.
But my passion and what I know God put me on this planet to do was wellness, and specifically fitness and nutrition, and more specifically tailored. It's niche. I'm not the boot camp type chick. I do that kind of stuff myself, but I'm more one on one. And I had to fail in order to realize, fail and succeed at the same time, in order for me to realize that that is where I'm supposed to be in this world, right? And what my calling within wellness is. It's not the same. I'm an educator when it comes to that. And I had to understand that. So all the knowledge that I had acquired, I was so passionate about sharing that knowledge with other people. Everybody doesn't want that, and that's okay. Some people just want to get it off. Well, I want you to learn how to do that. And so, yes, to get back to what you've asked me is, while doing Angel Eyes and teaching Zumba and realizing I need more knowledge, Zumba wasn't enough for me, right? I just wasn't enough. So I then went and got more education, became a personal trainer and all this kind of stuff, and then went back and got accepted into the medical fitness program, which was actually someone that needed to have a master's degree in physical fitness to get accepted. I had enough continuing education that it was almost a master's degree. So I was accepted. But to that point, I realized this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm just not a half step person. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right and do things fully. And so, and I love it. And I started out, uh, getting mentored by someone, because I also believe that you need a mentor. You
Absolutely.
must have mentors in different areas, nutrition and in fitness. Once I went back and got more additional education in nutrition, you need to have a mentor, someone that you could follow and ask questions. I was following in my mentor's footsteps, which was great in the beginning when I first started out, but I
Mhm.
hated it because my mentor is into group fitness and large group fitness. My studio was packed, but I was miserable. I was drowning, had 10 instructors on site, 4 instructors out. You remember you've been
Yes,
step by
yes.
step. I was doing corporate wellness, and now I'm doing corporate wellness nationally, Maggie. And you know,
Right, right.
all of that, and it was great, but I hated it. It was not for me. I like the intimate settings and small group fitness, but I need to be able to be paid substantially. So personal training, yes, I can make it, but with medical fitness, I'm a healthcare provider, and so I can now bill insurance for my services, much
Well
like
done.
a physical therapist, which is triple the amount. So I can have less clients and make double the money with less headaches and still be true to who I am and what I believe in. And when it's intimate, people are more interested in learning because they want to know you,
Right,
not not just coming to lose weight, right?
right.
In a large group setting, which is nothing wrong with that. It's not me. And so my clients and my patients are there. They're referred, the patients are referred by their doctors. And so it's not just, we're being monitored and things are being tracked, and to make sure that we can get rid of these chronic illnesses that they suffer from. So again, all of that to say is, if it is your passion, you'll know it, number one. because I wasn't getting paid in the beginning, and I still don't get paid like really for Angel Eyes, and I don't care. It's grown nationally, and now we're able to impact far more lives. And so for me, I think that a person really needs to know that and seek the passion first, and
Mm.
the financial will follow.
Let's touch on that point because I loved how you were clear to say I was miserable. I hated the big, when you followed your mentor and trying to build something that really was not you. How long did it take you to realize this is not me and be able to pivot it and and find your niche in one-on-one classes and just being in that intimate setting? Because a lot of us stay in situations that make us miserable, but that point to where you're like, you know what, I got to do something else.
Yes, it became when my studio was the fullest. In that year, the studio made more money than it ever had. And it was early in my journey, by the way, in opening up. At the time, it was Dawn Wells Fitness, and now DWF Wellness because we do so much more, right? And I still I liked all the people. I'm a people person, but I was just not happy. And everybody but me was getting paid. 10 instructors on site, four out, 4 out in corporate, 14 to 15 instructors, and everybody but me was making any money. I was actually
Wow.
almost lost my house, almost lost
Wow.
my car. Yeah, literally everything I almost lost. My kids even said, "Mommy, you think it might be for you to give up? Maybe you shouldn't do this. You were making 6 figures, and now da da da." I knew what I was supposed to do, so I just stood still, made some changes, and learned. Don't be so married to
Mhm.
how you start something.
Right.
Don't be so married to that, because if you're not willing to evolve as your business and your passion evolves, you will falter. The average fitness professional lasts 2 to 3 years. I've been doing this in my own brick and mortar for 6,
Right.
almost 7 now. And but you've got it. What it started as is totally not now.
Absolutely, Don. My mentor actually says what got you here is is not going to be what propels you to the next thing. So change
Absolutely.
is always a good thing.
And you have to be open to that. If you aren't, you have to also be open to failure and
Mm.
understand, all right, and know when to get out. And it's not
Absolutely.
just losing money that should be your indication for getting out. It might is it because I was losing money. I had to even go back and get a job.
Mhm.
And I still contract sometimes now, but I do it now because I want to and not because I have to, right? And so it's just being understanding what your being open to what your journey is, and
Mm.
and knowing when to get out, stay educated, learn from the people that have done it before you, even if it isn't in your industry. Business is business. And that's another thing, Maggie. I also started out with it being my passion
Mm.
and forgot the business part. So
Oh,
cannot do that, because you will falter and it
absolutely.
will falter as well. And then your passion will become your misery. And that you just cannot. So knowing
Balance.
balance and understanding what needs to be done, and asking somebody that's done it before you, even if it's like I had my mentor, she was in wellness. I asked her certain things, but her journey is not my journey.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
there are some things that she gave me that have still been beneficial to me to this day. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, for a listening audience, I definitely, as Dawn mentioned, her studio, she is located in Covington, Georgia. So we will provide that information on the website. And Dawn, as we get ready to wrap up here, are there any closing remarks you'd like to share with our audience, our listening audience?
Well, my tagline is hashtag your only limit is you. And only and you are in capital letters, because with an exclamation mark, because only you can make it happen. Only you can allow it to fail.
That's right.
Only you. knows when to know when to know. Only you. All right. And that applies to not just wellness, anything as a whole. And don't give up. If you know that it's what you're supposed to be doing, guys, do it. No matter what anybody says, you do it. You do it. And it like the Bible says, you build it and the people will come.
That's right.
That's very true. They will. I would like to add that everything we offer can be done remotely. You do not need to be in our facility, which, of course, as Maggie mentioned, is in Covington, Georgia. Just wanted to add that.
I love that. And again, Dawn, thank you so much. We will have the information on how you can contact Dawn on her website, angeleyesfitnessandnutrition.org, as well as dwwellness.com.
You're still stuck on Dawn Wells Fitness.
And again, Dawn, thank you for your time. And everyone else, hopefully you'll join us next time with another exciting episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Join us next time on the next episode of Impress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.impressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.